Although this log is titled hours 25 and 26, it's really about hour 26 because on that flight I did my first solo. The first solo is a milestone in the career of any pilot. It's a goal that I've been working towards since August when I started with regular flight lessons, and I finally recorded that milestone in my pilot logbook on Friday, December 15, 2023. Unfortunately, I didn't capture the video from hour 25, but that was a typical circuit training session with the potential for going solo, which didn't eventuate due to a cloud base that was lower than the minimums for going solo. Therefore, I'll focus on what happened in hour 26 in this video log. For the solo flight, 8 is reported
Camden 2 Milestone Charlie, runway 06, glide operations in progress, wind 030 degrees 10 knots, crosswind 10, visibility greater than 10 kilometres, cloud broken 4000, temperature 29er, QNH 1009er. On first contact with Camden Tower Ground, notify receipt of information Charlie.
I've talked about the first solo process and milestone in hour 20. The first student solo is a pivotal milestone in aviation training. It's the first time that a student pilot operated an aircraft without an instructor. This event marks a significant step in becoming a licensed pilot, demonstrating the student's ability to fly independently and make decisions without direct supervision. In hour 26, I'd finally achieved my first solo. I had thought about it since my first training flight in January 2023 flight camp, almost a year ago. Back then, it was more like a distant goal, achievable but not imminent. Since mid-November though, the prospect of going solo became much more immediate. And with every flight lesson, the prospect of taking off without an instructor in the right seat became more realistic. In the previous few weeks, I had several opportunities to achieve this milestone, only to be foiled by a combination of flying deficiencies, bad weather, or equipment failure. Regardless of these setbacks, I was confident that I'd go solo in December because I knew I could pack at least 4 to 6 lessons before the Christmas break. And I felt that I was improving and correcting the deficiencies that caused previous solos' rejections. The first solo is extremely important. Having now done it, I think that its importance is mainly a psychological one. This is the first time that a student flies without an instructor's safety net. It demonstrates the student's ability to fly solo, instilling confidence in their skills. In addition, the first solo is a required step in obtaining a pilot's license, showcasing readiness for more advanced training stages. Instead of going through the technicalities of hour 26, I'll explain what happened and how it felt before, during, and after the solo. If you strip away the special psychology of the first solo, it comes down to flying one circuit without the instructor. It's no big deal if you take a moment to think about this. I started circuits training back in hour 8. Today is my 26th hour of training. In each training hour, I completed about 6 to 9 circuits. Let's average this to 7. So far, not including today, I've completed 17 hours of training, and a total of 17 times 7 equals 119 circuits. Most of these circuits were normal, i.e. circuits where I used flaps to land or do a go-around. Since hour 13, I also started practicing flapless and glide approaches. The only practical difference between today's solo circuit and all of the previous 119 circuits is that I'd be the pilot in command in the solo. I'd be the only pilot on the plane. The instructor's only responsibility is to 1. Confirm that my competence on the day is sufficient to allow me to fly this one circuit safely, and 2, that the conditions, the weather and the airspace traffic were appropriate. Simple, right? I followed the same rationalization to help me prepare for this flight. I'm a mature age student pilot, so I've been in several stressful situations throughout my life. I didn't feel particularly stressed today or in previous possible solo flights. I've spoken with other pilots who did the solo before me, and it seems that the younger a student is, the higher the solo or pre-solo stress and anxiety is. According to my instructors, a certain amount of stress is beneficial as it helps to augment senses and reaction speeds. Based on that, I even tried to elevate my stress level by thinking about it, but that didn't really work. I always felt Spock's approach to dealing with stressful situations was better. And of course, there's also MacGyver. MacGyver has been in a lot of hairy situations, but I don't remember him freaking out ever. Or at least he never showed it. MacGyver, just like Spock, operated calmly and methodically, no matter how much pressure the environment applied on them. Now let's break today's flight into 3 parts. 1. Before the flight, starting about a day before, up to the pre-flight inspection. 2. The pre-solo assessment, starting at pre-flight inspection until the instructor leaves the plane. And 3. The solo itself, starting when the instructor exits the plane until getting back in after completing the solo. So, before the flight. As with all my flights, I prepared my equipment the day before. I checked the batteries in my headset, formatted the SD cards and the GoPros, and changed the external batteries. I checked all cables. I also checked Flight Radar 24 to see if JBC, which is my plane for the day, had done any flights recently. I packed my water bottle and a few snacks. I also checked the weather forecast for Camden on Weather Zone and on PlaneSight, which is something that I'm now fanatical about. I had a 12 p.m. flight, so I had enough time to do some work in the morning and then check NAIP's location briefing. That's where I get my TAF from, the terminal area forecast. You can see the location briefing in the screen capture here. The TAF mentioned 12 knot winds at 120 degrees. This wind is a little high and its direction would create a 10 knot crosswind on runway 06. I thought I could handle this, but to be safe I decided to call AutoCab. So I wanted to chat with Victor and ask about the actual conditions at the airport. And after a quick chat, I got in the car and drove to Camden. 2 hours later I was there and the wind had greatly improved. It was still around 10 knots, but almost entirely headwind. I sat with Victor, my CFI for this flight, to do the paperwork. I felt good with very little detectable stress and anxiety. And I had no alcohol, of course, but I had a bit of food and drink, and the weather was good. It was go with a wide margin in the scorecard. Before Victor could approve me for the solo flight, I had to demonstrate that I was competent with the various pre-flight and flight operations. To do this, I had to do everything I've done many times before. Pre-flight checks, ATC communications, engine startup and taxi, run-up checks, takeoff, and circuits. I would demonstrate my skill in the circuit's normal, flapless, and glide approaches. I would also do a simulated engine failure upwind and communicate with the Camden Tower. I only had one goal for this part of hour 26, to fly in front of the plane, turn on time, use power and altitude to control speed and rate of descent, and don't worry about the descent rate too much. If power and altitude are correct, then the rate of descent will be correct as well. By flying in front of the plane, my approach will be stable. I'll be able to land and not require a go-around. And it worked. The first circuit and touch and go were very good, at least for me. Circuit 2 was flapless, again it was good. Circuit 3, I did a simulated engine failure upwind and then a forced landing engine failure downwind, which we changed to a go-around, and it was still all good. Circuit 4, we did another engine failure simulation downwind, completed in a glide approach, and then did a touch and go. Good. Circuit 5 was a full stop with a normal approach, after which Victor said,
Charlie Bravo Charlie, can I get a quick wind check?
060 at 10.
Charlie Bravo Charlie, request retaxi holding point Alpha, runway 06 and first to the runner bay for student first solo.
Sure, right, Charlie. So is that number 1 or number 3?
Number 1 at Charlie Bravo Charlie.
Sure, Charlie. Okay, right bay approved and then taxi holding point Alpha 06.
Runner bay approved, taxi holding point Alpha, runway 06, Charlie Bravo Charlie. Alrighty, man, let's do it.
Let's do it, yes.
The wind is 060. I think he said 8 knots.
It's okay.
let's do it. And it was go for my first solo. Yes, let's do it. I parked Julia Bravo Charlie at the runner bay of holding point Delta. Victor reiterated a few things to remember, such as what I'm supposed to do. Just go to holding point Alpha, make the ready call for circuits, ready call as normal, take off, do a single circuit, land, pick me up, and from there we go back to parking. He also explained what to do in case of radio issues and how to confirm that I could hear him through the radio. He would use his handheld radio to tune into tower frequency so he could listen to my calls and jump in via radio if necessary. I had a bit of water. Victor got out of the plane.
Okay, it's just me.
We checked his radio.
Can you hear me?
We can all hear you.
I can also hear him.
And then I was off to holding point Alpha. I made my radio call.
Camden Tower, Julia Bravo Charlie, holding point Alpha, runway 06, ready for solo circuit.
Julia Bravo Charlie Tower, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, Julia Bravo Charlie.
And before I knew it, I was accelerating on runway 06. As I expected, the plane accelerated faster than I used before because it had half its regular passenger load. Vertical climb speed was also higher and I reached circuit altitude almost by the end of the upwind leg. I turned to crosswind and then to downwind. I made my downwind call.
Julia Bravo Charlie, downwind, full stop.
Julia Bravo Charlie, number 1.
Number 1, Julia Bravo Charlie.
And immediately started the pre-landing checklist. During this time, I was scanning the main instruments, altimeter and airspeed, and the turn coordinator during the turns, and I looked out the window for reference cues. I felt good, no stress. The workload increases a lot at downwind, so I did the bumpfish checklist while checking spacing, altitude and airspeed. I lost some altitude late downwind, but that was about when I started the turn to base. I deployed flaps 10 degrees before the turn, decelerated RPMs. I increased flaps to 20 degrees at early base and 30 degrees full flap on final. Everything was almost textbook. Stabilized the plane on the extended centerline just before touchdown. And then it happened. I pulled the yoke back just a little too much, causing the plane to balloon. The natural instinct to push forward kicked in and I pushed the yoke forward to lower the nose and get the plane to land. And remember what Greg said back in hour 15, never push forward like that. But I did. I hadn't made this mistake since hour 15. The Cessna 172 is a tough little plane, very forgiving. Again, it forgave this mistake. It was a rough landing that started from a good, stable approach, but a small mishandling spoiled the touchdown.
Right, Charlie, you can take to the bay and pick up the instructor, and congratulations on your first solo.
Thank you, very much appreciated.
I stopped the plane near where Victor stood and he jumped in after joking about my landing spectacle.
Oh, sorry. It's always one thing. Well done, mate. Let's get going. Thank you, Victor. I hope you enjoyed the show towards
The landing. We'll talk about that one later.
Oh my God.
We taxied back to parking, completed the shutdown checklist and secured Julia Bravo Charlie and a couple of other planes in the hangar. I was excited and contemplated returning the next day for more flying. I had a booking for next week, but that was more than 5 days away. December 15 is a day I remember. My flying was not perfect, but it was safe and controlled. The first solo flight opened up the way for more solo flights. As I understand it, my next solo flight will be like the first one, but with more circuits. It will include 2 or 3 touch and goes and normal approaches. And after that, depending on my performance, I'll be doing a door-to-door session where I'm solo from the hangar, taxi, take off, 6 or 7 circuits, approach for a full stop, and taxi back to the hangar. It will be an entire hour-long session with no instructor. While I feel confident that all of the above is simply an extension of training that I've already completed, the big differentiator is risk. The longer I fly, the more likely it is that I'll encounter a situation that I've never experienced before. It could be a sudden change in weather, bringing in strong winds or rain. It could be an unexpected influx of planes coming into land, making maintaining situational awareness in the circuit super important. I may experience my first radio malfunction in one of my first solos, or even an engine failure. The statistics are in my favor as these risks are low, but numbers are cold and real, and one of those situations may happen in my very next solo. So while I'm eager to do the solo again, I'm mindful of all the risks will be higher and that the only way to mitigate them is to do more training. Spoke would be a strong advocate for additional training. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video. And of course, you can also head over to my detailed flight training log pages on the Tech Explorations website. In these pages, I document in detail all of my experiences and learnings from each one of my training flights. These logs contain a goldmine of information for any aviation student or anyone interested in aviation. Until next time, I wish you clear skies and safe landings.